This was never supposed to happen. Jungkook finally breaks silence about Taehyung's exit, revealing the painful truth behind BTS's fracture in a revelation that has shaken ARMY to its core. Jungkook, BTS's youngest yet often most guarded member, has finally broken his silence about the controversial and heart-wrenching departure of Kim Taehyung, known globally as V. Without warning, Jungkook's words peeled back the glamorous curtain of K-pop stardom, exposing a deeper, more haunting reality beneath the group's polished image. Was Taehyung's exit merely a career pivot, or was it the result of long-suppressed tension, mental turmoil, and unspoken battles within the group? The answer, according to Jungkook, is far more disturbing than fans dared to imagine. The global fandom still remembers the silence that followed Taehyung's abrupt hiatus, a silence so heavy it echoed louder than any official statement. The questions remained. Why did V, the voice of elegance and mystery, suddenly step away at the height of BTS's worldwide dominance? For months, speculation ran wild. Health issues? Creative differences? Personal reasons? None of these guesses ever satisfied the void left in ARMY's hearts. And now, with Jungkook's revelation, it appears the truth was darker than anyone had been prepared for. There are things we chose not to speak about, Jungkook admitted in a moment that now feels historic, because even we didn't want to believe they were happening. His voice trembled, not with emotion, but with restraint. The tone of a man carrying secrets too long, now finally letting them surface. Insiders close to the group had whispered for years about growing artistic divergence between the members. But what Jungkook suggested was not merely artistic, it was psychological, emotional, even spiritual. According to him, Taehyung had been battling a deep sense of alienation from the group's evolving identity. The very image that catapulted BTS to international superstardom had become, for Taehyung, a suffocating prison. He felt unheard, misunderstood, left behind in the group's decisions, Jungkook disclosed, refusing to hide behind euphemisms. It wasn't just pressure from the outside. It was the silence inside that broke him. The words hit like a thunderclap. Fans who had followed every stage, every award, every tearful encore now began to piece together what they had ignored for too long. The quiet moments where Taehyung's smiles didn't quite reach his eyes, the subtle distance during group interviews, the absences masked as personal time. What caused this internal fragmentation in a group once praised for its brotherhood? Jungkook's implication was devastating. He did not point fingers, but his silence after each answer spoke louder than any name. He mentioned how some decisions were made too quickly, without full agreement, and that not everyone felt they were seen. The most chilling moment, however, came when Jungkook recalled a private exchange that now seems prophetic. One night, Taehyung said to me, "What if my dream no longer matches yours?" I laughed it off. I wish I hadn't. That single sentence reframes everything. BTS was never just a band. It was a symbol of unity, resilience, and hope. But what happens when the dream that binds them becomes the very force that tears them apart? Taehyung's departure, Jungkook hinted, wasn't the result of one explosive argument, but rather a slow, invisible erosion. Days turning into weeks of emotional exhaustion. Creative dissonance building like static in the air. A voice trying to be heard amidst the roar of global success. And perhaps the most painful truth? It could have been prevented. Jungkook's candor has reignited a storm in the fandom. Not out of anger, but out of heartbreak. Fans across the globe have taken to social media not just to mourn the revelation, but to express guilt. Did we, as fans, celebrate too blindly? Did we miss the signs? Were we part of the pressure that drove a wedge between brothers? The grief is collective. So is the reckoning. Even more disturbing was Jungkook's subtle suggestion that Taehyung's exit might only be the beginning of a greater unraveling. "We survived the spotlight, but I'm not sure we survived each other," he said, a sentence that now haunts every corner of ARMY's consciousness. For a group that once proclaimed we're bulletproof, this moment feels like a fatal crack in the armor. The very fabric of what held BTS together now seems fragile, vulnerable, and painfully human. And in this newfound vulnerability, Jungkook isn't asking for sympathy, he's issuing a warning. "The world cheered for our unity," he said, "but they didn't see the cost." As this revelation spreads, one question lingers in the minds of fans and industry insiders alike. If Taehyung, the heart of BTS's emotional depth, could walk away from the very thing he helped build, who's next? There is no definitive answer. Only echoes. Jungkook's interview isn't just a confession. It's a memorial. A memorial to a version of BTS that no longer exists. A group of boys who once dreamed together under the same roof, now drifting in different emotional galaxies. And though Taehyung may have left without a scandal, without a dramatic farewell, the silence he left behind speaks volumes. It is a silence Jungkook has now dared to break, not for spectacle, but for truth. In an industry obsessed with perfection, Jungkook's decision to reveal the imperfection within may be the most courageous act of all. And for ARMY, who have watched their idols ascend beyond imagination, this moment brings them crashing back to reality, a reality where even legends break and even family can fracture. What happens next is uncertain. But one thing is clear: the truth has finally surfaced, and nothing will ever be the same again. Yet as this revelation ricocheted across every platform, igniting threads, tears, and theories, a critical question began to emerge, not within the words themselves, but within the space between them. How could something so monumental, so earth-shattering, surface without a traceable origin? Why now? Why Jungkook? And most importantly, where was the proof? The global response was immediate and explosive. Fans were devastated, shaken, confused. But among the emotional outpouring came a strange, unsettling pattern: the absence of any verifiable source. No video, no voice recording, no official platform. Only words, circulated, repeated, believed. Some fans, particularly those most attuned to BTS's media history, started to scrutinize the message more closely. "This doesn't sound like Jungkook," one user wrote. Another questioned, "Why would he say all this suddenly, without context, without timing, without reason?" Investigations followed. Translations were reviewed. Language was analyzed. Timelines were dissected. And slowly, piece by piece, a disturbing truth began to reveal itself, not about Jungkook, not about Taehyung, but about the nature of viral misinformation. The entire article, the entire emotional implosion it sparked, was fiction, fabricated, engineered, a masterfully crafted narrative designed not to inform, but to manipulate. There had been no such interview, no secret confession, no emotional rupture between Jungkook and Taehyung. The phrases attributed to them were never spoken. The heartbreak felt by fans was real, but its cause was not. In a digital age, where emotion often outruns verification, this false report was allowed to bloom unchecked. What made it even more powerful and dangerous was its subtle realism. It didn't scream lies. It whispered truths that never were. This wasn't a careless rumor or fanfiction passed off as fact. This was deliberate emotional architecture. And it worked. The creators of the narrative, whoever they may be, knew exactly which wounds to press. They understood the emotional landscape of ARMY, the fears, the history, the loyalty. They weaponized trust. And in doing so, they exposed not just the vulnerability of fans, but the fragility of truth in a world oversaturated with content. As word of the fabrication spread, the emotional shift was palpable. Grief gave way to confusion. Confusion turned to anger. And then came reflection. Why was it so easy to believe this? Because it sounded possible? Because it felt real? Or perhaps the answer is more painful. Because we are so deeply connected to these 7 individuals that the thought of losing even one feels more real than reality itself. The line between fiction and journalism has never been thinner. And this incident, this hoax, served as a brutal wake-up call to the fandom, the media, and to content creators everywhere. Let it be known, Taehyung has not left BTS. Jungkook has made no such statements. The emotional fallout experienced by millions of fans was built on a false foundation, and yet, this moment is not without meaning. It reveals something raw and undeniable: the emotional power BTS holds and the responsibility that comes with telling their story. Whether in fiction or fact, words matter, narratives matter, and the truth, no matter how boring it may seem next to a dramatic headline, matters most. This article, in its initial form, was written not to deceive, but to demonstrate just how easily narratives can be manipulated. It was a cautionary tale disguised as news. And now, it must be unpacked as such. To every army who cried, who feared the worst, who questioned their reality. This is your closure. This is the truth. The heartbreak was real. The story was not. Let this be a moment not of shame, but of awakening. In the rush to feel, let us not forget to think. In the rush to click, let us not forget to verify. And in the flood of fiction, let us always seek the island of fact, because the truth doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers.